Today we are drinking the Mountain Valley spring water. It's crazy. I didn't even know you could get spring water from mountain valleys. It's insane. So when you're on this path, this path of discipline, sexual discipline, and just discipline in general, two things are going to happen. The devil is going to literally be over your shoulder trying to trip you up constantly, trying to sabotage you essentially. And it's crazy because that manifests as self-sabotage. So that's one. And two, like I said, these chicks are, they're going to be giving you a lot more attention. They just will. Like when you are actually locked in, dialed in, the attention you get from women, it's just going to be nonstop. They're going to treat you like a celebrity. They're going to treat you like Duke Dennis. They're going to treat you like Duke Dennis. They're going to, and that's the these are the two ways that men usually fall back into their old identities. And it's actually a little bit deeper than that, but that's kind of like the root issue of it. But there's always an inception point, and I think a lot of it does start with triggers. And so for me today, we're going to talk about the ways that I personally overcame lust and still overcome lust, because it is a constant battle. We're always going to be battling against this force. It's a nonstop thing. It's like Berserk. We're always going to be battling against these evil forces. It's crazy. But yeah, so I want to talk to you guys about things that I have basically compiled almost as safeguards that really just make it to where I don't have to deal with like the struggles, the daily struggles of lust, right? It kind of comes and it goes, it passes and it leaves. It's just like anger, it's just like fear. It's not like something that I like actively say, oh, I'm struggling with lust. That's not like something that's even in my vocabulary. So I want to talk to you guys about it today. So get your spring water. Let's talk about it. Number one is, imagine you just have this portal that just takes you anywhere, can teach you anything, can like literally let you sleep with any beautiful woman that you want, that you hand select. That's basically what your phone is at this point. And I know the phone is a great invention. The phone makes many millionaires. The phone makes new millionaires every single day. But it's like literally a portal. And I don't mean to say this like metaphorically. At this point, it literally is a portal. And we have to think about this very seriously. In a real way, what you're going to have to do is cut off access to the portal, or at least cut off access points. Because I went the extreme route. You guys don't have to go as extreme as getting a flip phone, which I experimented with, which just totally reprogrammed my brain overall, which is crazy. You don't have to go that route. You could just dumbify your phone instead of getting a full-on dumb phone, is what they call them these days. You don't have to get a dumb phone. You can just like grayscale your phone out, eliminate all the social media apps, all the pointless apps, add timers to your apps if you need to be on social media. Like for me, for example, I hate Instagram. I have to be on Instagram because I have a brand, for example. So I need to be on it, which sucks, but it's like I add timers to it, so it like constantly reminds me to get off of it. Because it's easy to get trapped into scrolling. It's easy, right? The triggers are so easy. You can just be scrolling innocently, looking at memes of a cat. All of a sudden, you see some girl with basically no clothes on, which is just nuts. It leads down so many paths, and these triggers are meant to be subtle and quick and fast and catch you off guard. So that's the type of thing you want to stay away from. So dumbify your phone, grayscale your phone out. A great way that you can do this. We'll talk about accountability in a bit, but like something that I did whenever I did this was I deleted certain apps, and then I gave my phone password to download apps to a friend. It was a password I didn't even know. It was a brand new like self-generated password. So you can get crazy with it, or you can get a flip phone. Or whatever you want to do. But like long story short, eliminate as much social media as you possibly can. X, Reddit, Instagram. Reddit is probably one of the worst, in case you guys didn't know. Discord, you'd be surprised what's on there these days. Use them intentionally if you are going to use them. Maybe just get on your laptop instead. That's a little bit more intentional, that kind of stuff. The second safeguard that I really recommend is eliminating idle time. When you're idle, it is so easy to fall into these types of traps. My mom always loves to say, an idle mind is the devil's playground. It's so true. There was an update that just came out for Overwatch. I don't get to play video games too much these days. It sucks. It really sucks. But I got to play like 30 minutes of Overwatch tonight because they released 5 new characters and all that stuff. So I'm playing and it's just so much dopamine. It's so much idle time basically. And I start thinking about all the girls at the gym earlier, right? Because there's tons of girls, they're wearing basically nothing. Some of them are looking at me and they're just everywhere, right? And so in my mind, I'm just dang, this could go down a really bad path right now. How do I combat this idleness? Get off the PS5, record a video. You want to replace it with productivity and you want to be as busy as you possibly can. I don't want to say because sometimes the way that the enemy attacks you is by keeping you busy basically, but intentional productivity, intentional busyness. So I work a job, but I also have a business and I also am doing this YouTube thing now and I'm also interested in writing. So I write a lot and all these kinds of things. So it's get to the point where you genuinely can get really, really okay with the idea of just being busy and being happy with being busy. The third thing that I want to talk about on this topic is the idea of reshaping your identity. A really good book that I actually read on this topic, it's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. Amazing book. Check it out. I know a lot of people also talk about psycho-cybernetics. I find the book to be, and this is not me roasting it at all, a little cookie cutter. And maybe it's just because I've watched and read so many books on the topic. It's a little too granular. I really liked... I like Joe Dispenza's version a little bit better. Also because there are actionable takeaways that, you can do at the end of the book. So long story short, I don't want to start rambling about that. Reshaping your identity is actually really simple. And the reason you want to do this is you want to stop identifying as somebody that struggles with lust. The same way, you wouldn't identify as somebody that struggles with a candy addiction unless you have a candy addiction, right? Or struggles with anger, or struggles with fear. You want to overcome these things and you want to reshape your identity to be somebody that that literally is just not something that they struggle with, right? How can we do this? Quite simply, you want to evaluate your current self with your higher self. How do you do that? Get a journal. Literally just write down who you are right now, how other people would describe you, your insecurities, the things that you love, the things that you hate, things that you love about yourself and hate about yourself, all that stuff, right? It's deep. I mean, you're gonna have to do a lot of intense shadow work, and we'll get into this in another video. I don't want to make this whole video about this, but understand that once you do that, and then you cross-examine that with your higher self, basically. So, what does that person look like? What do they wear? What kind of cologne do they wear? What kind of clothes do they wear? Where do they hang out? Who do they talk to? How do they talk? All that kind of stuff. When you kind of evaluate these two different types of people, it becomes so much easier for you to become this higher self when you stop identifying as this person and start pursuing this person, right? Your higher self. That's what you want to work towards. And you can only do this by repetition, and you can only do this by visualization. So every single day, let's say for just 60 days, I don't know, throwing that number out there, you want to look at your notes and then you want to visualize who you can be. And for a lot of people, that simply could just be, hey, I don't want to be somebody that identifies or deals with lust. I want to have a beautiful wife. Or for my ladies watching, I want to have a beautiful, amazing, great husband that just takes lust away from me, That kind of thing. At the end of the day, that's the type of visualization that you should strive for. Because the thing is, streaks are great. The idea of holding yourself accountable is great, and saying that you struggle with these things and being truthful and honest is great. But understand, the more that you think about it, the more you think about your streak, you're I'm on day 181, day 182, day 183. It's you are quite literally actively identifying as somebody that deals with this still. Does that make sense? I don't count days. Sometimes I might like leave a journal entry and be like, oh, like I just started my discipline today for the first time after a relapse, right? And then I can go back and look and not like literally count the days and be like, oh, it's 3 months before, right? Or a year before. That's kind of how I like track myself. I don't literally like exit off on a calendar or anything like that because I honestly just don't really identify as someone that struggles with that. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's where you want to get to. And that's kind of like my advice. Last but not least, you want to have somebody that can hold you accountable. A lot of people actually don't believe in accountability partners and buddies and stuff like that, but I genuinely think that they work. However, with a caveat, you eventually want to get to the point where you hold yourself accountable. You don't want to forever rely on somebody else. Some people, like, their pastor is their accountability partner and they like go to confession every week. And that's like a great way to start. But like also understand that there's this like deep element of like shame when it comes to this kind of stuff. And so like I don't really think that the shame stuff is like that healthy. And like I think like, sometimes accountability partners can like almost shame you for like relapsing and stuff like that, which is just not healthy. And so I want you to get to the point where you genuinely can hold yourself accountable. That's why on this channel, I don't care about making like, F boys or G's or whatever. I care about, making people become their highest self, becoming your best absolute self, becoming a legend, becoming a myth. That's the type of person that I want to craft. And so these types of people, they work in their communities. Maybe you become somebody that is active in your community church, active in a community club where other people rely on you. And it could be even something like YouTube, right? Where you talk about this stuff and people start to literally rely on you. And when you get to that point, you literally need to be accountable for your actions and the things that you do to make sure that you are representing the type of person that they believe in. So that's how you become like self-accountable. But it's baby steps. And that's why I say, start with an accountability partner. It's probably the best thing that you can do. Last but not least, as a bonus, I don't want to get too deep into the spirituality right now. I don't want to overwhelm some people. But this world, in my opinion, is an illusion. Actually, not really in my opinion. This world is an illusion, essentially. And, the real actual veil, that is covering it is something that we quite don't understand. And so, like I said earlier, there are forces that are quite literally sabotaging you at every moment that they can possibly get because they're trying to drain your energy for reasons that, again, I don't really understand. The best thing that you can do is submit to a higher power, okay? Like, I'm not saying you have to believe in my God. I'm not saying you have to believe in God at all. Maybe you believe in the universe, whatever, but submit to some higher power. And when you do that, you can get over this obsession with with control, right? Like a lot of people in self-discipline communities, self-retention communities, just in general, men have an issue with control. They think they can control everything, control every outcome. It's not really the case. What I do is I give a lot of my anxieties to God. I don't have anxiety, but like things that are like just bothering me, for example, sadness, you can give your sadness to God. You can give your depression to God if you have depression. It sounds very like, it sounds like not, you might be checked out right now, basically. I know a lot of people hear that and they're like, what are you talking about, right? But it's true. And, even if it's just like a placebo thing, or maybe it's just an anecdotal thing, I can literally attest to the fact that for me personally, when I gave up my lust to God, I was just like, and this is another thing, really, really quick. A lot of people, again, are going to say, well, God thinks that's shameful that you're doing, X, Y, and Z, right? That you're watching Pornhub and subscribing to OnlyFans. God thinks that's shameful. And so they kind of like duck away from God, and they think that because of, honestly, the church and religion in general making it shameful, they think that God also doesn't want them anymore, which is not the case. It's not the case. It's not even true. God, read Lost Parable Sheep. God always, or Lost Sheep Parable. God will always chase after even just one sheep, So at the end of the day, Give it to God, because for me personally, like I was saying, when I started to do that and I gave my anxiety and lust and all that stuff to God, I felt so much lighter. I literally felt like Rock Lee after he took the weights off. Like, that's literally how I felt. So get to that point where you can be comfortable with the idea of giving away this lust to God on top of all the other things. And that's why it's my bonus tip, because I know a lot of people are going to be like, okay, dude, whatever. So, we must stay focused, my brothers. We must stay focused. We have succubuses, we have forces that we don't understand chasing us down. We're like Guts and Berserk. Like I said, we're dealing with some crazy stuff. And people want to say it's not real and all this stuff. You guys have read the files. I'm not going to say his name. Starts with an E. I'm not going to say his name. They're doing it. They're doing some freaky deaky stuff. And I don't want any part of it, and I hope you don't either. So we must stay vigilant. We must stay focused. We must be drinking our spring water. We must be drinking our spring water. No microplastics. Working to progressive overload in the gym, like I said before. Staying away from the huzz. And we need to stay focused. This is a real spiritual battle that a lot of people are facing and dealing with all the time. So I hope this video helped even a little bit. It's kind of like a follow-up to the last video. And I'm very hell-bent on making men the absolute best versions of themselves. From my experience, I've seen people do it. I've seen myself do it. It's possible. I want you to become a legend. I want them to say your name after you die thousands and thousands of times, not out of vanity, but out of purpose. So let's stay locked in. Let's stay away from the you-know-whats. Let's stay focused, okay, guys? Y'all be easy. Peace.